You've heard the legends: knights in shining armor, noble kings, and grand castles. But behind those fairy tales lies a darker truth. What if I told you a town once danced itself to death? That a noon received a letter written by demons? Or those green-skinned children once wandered into a medieval village, speaking a language none of them could understand? These stories aren't fiction, they're fragments of real history, buried beneath centuries of dust, fear, and silence. Tonight, we resurrect those chilling tales, true accounts from the heart of the Middle Ages that have been forgotten by time. Brace yourself. These are not the stories your teacher told you. These are the secrets of a haunted past, whispered through the cracks of forgotten tombstones. The Middle Ages, a time often wrapped in romance, castles, chivalry, and epic quests. But behind the shimmering illusion lies a world gripped by terror, bound by superstition, and haunted by things far stranger than fiction. For those who lived between the 5th and 15th centuries, life was short, brutal, and often unexplained. Disease swept through towns like shadows with teeth. People vanished without a trace, and stories too terrifying to be bedtime tales were whispered around hearts in trembling voices. These weren't mere myths. They were lived experiences, chronicled by monks, etched in marginalia, and buried in trial records and forgotten scrolls. What do you make of a town cursed to dance until death? A child born of the grave, or a noon possessed by voices no one else could hear? These accounts weren't fantasy, they were warnings. In this episode, we cast light into history's forgotten corners. We explore tales so eerie, so unexplainable, they were nearly lost to time. And what we discover may change how you view the so-called Dark Ages forever. Prepare yourself, not just for tales of horror, but for truths that challenge everything you thought you knew about the medieval world. This is not history rewritten. This is history revealed. It began on a summer's day in July, in the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire. A woman named Frau Trafia stepped out into the street and began to dance. Not with joy or celebration. There was no music, no reason, no rhythm, only movement. She danced with wild abandon, her feet pounding against the cobblestones, sweat beading on her brow, limbs flailing in tortured harmony. Neighbors gathered. They watched in disbelief. And then, one by one, they joined her. Within days, dozens of townspeople were dancing uncontrollably in the streets. By the end of the month, the number had risen to 400. These were not festive dances, but frantic, possessed convulsions. Dancers collapsed from exhaustion, blood seeping from their blistered feet. Some reported they died from heart attacks, strokes, or sheer fatigue. Yet the dance continued, as if a demonic melody played only they could hear. The town leaders were baffled. Physicians blamed it on hot blood and prescribed more dancing, believing the afflicted would dance the sickness out of their systems. They even hired musicians and cleared out guild halls for space. But the music only fueled the nightmare. Was it mass hysteria, a psychological event triggered by stress, famine, and religious fervor? Or could it have been something darker, a case of ergot poisoning, LSD-like toxins from moldy rye bread? Or a curse, perhaps, brought upon the town for its sins? Eyewitnesses described eyes rolled back, faces contorted in agony, limbs jerking uncontrollably yet never stopping. The church blamed divine punishment. Others whispered of demonic possession, of witches conjuring chaotic rhythms from the underworld. And then, as mysteriously as it began, the dancing faded. The afflicted were led to a mountain shrine dedicated to St. Vitus, patron saint of dance and epilepsy, where prayers and rituals were performed. Slowly, the rhythm of madness was broken, but the truth remains elusive. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's most bizarre and terrifying mass events, a chilling reminder of how easily the mind and body can be swept into uncontrollable chaos. In a time where plagues were expected to ravage the body, this one took hold of the soul. In the quiet countryside of 12th century Suffolk, England, Nestled among rolling hills and tangled woods, lay the village of Woolpit, named for the wolf pits once used to trap predators. But in this medieval hamlet, something far stranger than wolves would emerge. One harvest day, as villagers worked the fields near the pits, they discovered two children alone, disoriented, and unlike any others they had ever seen. A young boy and girl, clothed in unfamiliar garments of strange material, speaking a language nobody could understand. But what struck the villagers most was the color of their skin. They were green. Not pale, not sickly, but a vibrant, verdant green. Like the leaves of spring or the moss on the stones. The children were taken in, cared for, and slowly integrated into village life. At first, they refused all food, wasting away until finally accepting raw beans. Over time, they adjusted to local fare, and their green hue faded. Tragically, the boy soon grew ill and died. But the girl survived and with time, learned English. What she revealed would haunt the village forever. She claimed they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, a twilight world where the sun never shone, and everything was bathed in a perpetual green glow. According to her, the two had been herding their father's cattle when they heard a strange sound above and suddenly found themselves in a new world, blinded by sunlight, unable to find their way back. Were they real? Were they travelers from a subterranean realm? Aliens from the stars? Or simply lost, malnourished children with a rare condition? Historians have speculated everything from green sickness, a form of anemia, to folklore blending with memory, to strange linguistic misunderstandings. But the fact remains, multiple chroniclers of the time recorded the tale, not as myth, as truth. The girl eventually grew up, lived a normal life, and reportedly married a man from nearby Norfolk. But her origins remained a mystery she could never explain. In the frozen heart of 17th century Sweden, in the quiet parish of Torska, fear did not just linger, it reigned. In the year 1675, a storm of hysteria swept through this peaceful countryside, leaving behind one of the bloodiest and most brutal witch trials in European history. But few know its name. Few remember the nightmare that unfolded beneath the northern skies. It began with whispers of women riding storms, of curses whispered into wells, of livestock dying with eyes rolled back in terror. And like dry pine to fire, the whisper spread. A commission was formed, led by Laurentius Christophori Harnius, a zealous priest who believed he had been chosen by God to cleanse the earth of the devil's agents. Children were interrogated, coaxed, and manipulated until their stories became fuel for the flames. They claimed they had been taken by witches to a place called Blukila, a mythical meadow ruled by Satan himself. The priest's own wife reportedly dressed up as the devil during these interrogations. Her horn masked terrifying children into saying what was wanted. In these twisted performances, innocents stood no chance, and those accused. They were women, many old, many poor, many simply disliked by their neighbors. Trials turned into executions. 71 people, 65 women, and 6 men were beheaded and burned at the stake in a single day. It was the largest witch execution in Swedish history. No real evidence, no fair trial, only accusations, fear, and silence. One mother was forced to watch her own daughters accuse her. Another was executed alongside her sister. Some were dragged from their homes at night. Others were imprisoned and starved before the sentence was carried out. It was a frenzy, not of justice but of terror. What makes Torska even more chilling is how forgotten it has become. Overshadowed by the more famous Salem trials, the horror in Sweden lies buried under centuries of snow, unspoken, almost erased, but the earth remembers. Somewhere in the forests of Germanland, where cold winds howl through the trees, the ghosts of Torska still whisper. And they remind us fear, when unchecked, doesn't just destroy lives. It devours truth, warps memory, and buries injustice in silence. This was not justice, this was ritualized slaughter. And though centuries have passed, The soil in Torska has soaked too deep to ever forget. In the quiet, candle-lit corridors of a Sicilian convent in 1676, a nun named Sister Maria Crocifissa della Concezione cried out in terror. Her hands trembled, her face was twisted in anguish, and clutched between her fingers was a letter. A letter, she claimed, had been dictated to her by Satan himself. Sister Maria was a devout woman, known for her intense religious fervor. She often prayed 4 hours, fasting and flagellating herself in penance. But on the morning of August 11th, the other nuns found her collapsed on the stone floor of her chamber, ink smeared across her fingers. The parchment beside her bore bizarre symbols and indecipherable script, unlike any language known to man. She awoke hours later, whispering that the devil had tried to possess her body, offering her knowledge and power in exchange for her soul. In that moment of darkness, she said he forced her to write the letter in a tongue she didn't understand. She called it diabolic language. The nuns were horrified. The abbess, fearing spiritual corruption, locked the letter away, forbidding anyone from reading or copying it. For centuries, the letter was considered a cursed relic, a chilling reminder of how even the holiest could be touched by evil. Modern historians have long debated the letter's origin. Was Sister Maria suffering from schizophrenia or a rare form of epilepsy? Or was she truly visited by something darker? Then, in 2017, a group of scientists from the Ludum Science Center used decryption software and linguistic analysis to decode fragments of the letter. What they found was deeply unsettling. The letter appeared to be written in a mix of ancient alphabets: Greek, Latin, Runic, and Arabic. The content: a blasphemous denial of the Trinity, a claim that God is a human invention, and that this system works for no one. Whether it was demonic possession, a psychological break, or an elaborate deception, one thing is certain: this letter has endured for nearly 350 years, a message from the void written in the hand of a nun, whispered in the voice of the devil. In the ancient graveyard of Holy Trinity Church in England, where the earth cradles centuries of the dead, archaeologists unearthed a horror that chilled even the most seasoned minds. A single grave containing 2 skeletons. One, an adult woman, the other tiny, fetal bones. But it wasn't the presence of a child that horrified the researchers. It was the position. The infant's bones lay beneath the mother's pelvis, extending from between her legs, just as if the child had been delivered after death. This is the story of the coffin birth. The term refers to a rare and grotesque phenomenon in which a woman, after dying while pregnant, expels the fetus from her womb. As the body decays, gases build up, increasing pressure in the abdominal cavity. Eventually, the uterus ruptures, forcing the fetus out of the birth canal. A macabre echo of life, performed by death. It is unknown who this woman was, only that she lived in the 14th century and died in the later stages of pregnancy. The Holy Trinity Church, like many medieval sites, saw its share of plague and famine. The woman may have been a victim of either. Her grave was shallow, crudely dug, as if her burial had been rushed. To those who unearthed her centuries later, the sight was like something from a nightmare, a skeleton delivering a child in death, frozen in eternal agony. But in the Middle Ages, such occurrences would not have been understood as natural processes. They were omens, evil signs. In some rural legends, a post-mortem birth was viewed as a child, cursed by demons, doomed to walk between life and death. In other cases, it was thought to be a punishment from God, both mother and child condemned. Whether interpreted through science or superstition, the image of a coffin birth is one that stays with you, because it's not just about death. It's about how death sometimes imitates life, in the most grotesque way imaginable.